Hello friends, I hope you're doing well and thank you so much for being here with me today. If you're over 50, over 60 or beyond, and like so many of us have issues with dark circles, fine lines, dryness, texture in your under eye area, I am so glad you've joined us today because I'm excited to share with you today makeup tips on how to address under eye concerns with a special focus on concealers and some specific product recommendations. If you're new to this channel, a very special welcome. My name is Elise and I'm a professional working makeup artist who's passionate about helping those of us who are over 50 look on the outside how we feel on the inside, so we can look and feel our very confident best. Every Thursday, you'll find a new video on this channel, and I hope that you'll join our wonderful family of subscribers. And if you'd like to be notified each time a new video is available, all you have to do, in addition to hitting that subscribe button, is hit the bell icon to the right below this video, and you'll be automatically notified each time there's a new video available. And I thank you so very much in advance if you choose to do so. Since we have a lot of information to cover, let's get started. I think we'd all agree that the one constant with our skin is that it keeps changing. We all have varying degrees and different types of under eye issues. Some of us have dark circles, others of us deal with under eye puffiness and texture, some of us have fine lines or wrinkles, and some of us certainly deal with more than just one of these issues. I know I certainly do. Our genes, lack of sleep, sun damage, and aging all contribute to these issues. And because of all of these issues, it's understandable that some of us may be tempted to just stop using makeup. It's true that we certainly can't use the same techniques that we used in our 20s and 30s. And although there is unfortunately no one magic bullet that will solve all of these issues, since we can't turn back the clock, there are some things we can do which can definitely make a very positive difference in our appearance. Today, we'll be taking some time to talk about skincare options, makeup products, and makeup techniques that can definitely be game-changing. And by the way, if you'd like more information on some additional ways to address under eye concerns, in addition to makeup, I've put a link to another video I did a while back that I hope you might also find helpful. It's listed in the description box below. So let's go ahead and talk about the 5 steps that we can take to improve our under eye area. The skin under the eyes has very little fat lying underneath it, and what fat there is shrinks as we age. And without this fat to plump it up, the skin is prone to wrinkling. Collagen keeps the skin and muscles taut and springy, but as we age, collagen starts to diminish as well, and the skin doesn't spring back as easily as it once did, as we all know. Since the skin under our eyes is some of the thinnest skin on our body, and we have fewer oil glands there, we definitely need to keep this skin moisturized. So if your under eye skin is dry, as it is for most of us with mature skin, the first step is to consider extra hydration for this area overnight by using some type of hydrating under eye patches, which are made by many different brands. It can be especially beneficial to wear these patches overnight so that the hydration can really sink in for an extended period of time. And during the day, it's important to use a moisturizing eye cream. You may wish to consider using a lighter hydrating cream during the day than you do at night, especially if you have oily skin. You may find it especially helpful to check out a site called rankandstyle.com, since they have top 10 lists for a variety of products, including eye products. The second step is to regularly use a sunscreen under the eyes and above and below the eyebrows. In fact, my dermatologist once told me that one of the places we usually forget to put on sunscreen that's very important is right above our eyebrows. Since chemical sunscreens can sometimes be irritating for many of us, a mineral sunscreen may work best. And it's also important to wear a hat and sunglasses, as we all know. Third, color correcting the under eye area before applying concealer is key. And this is a step that may be new to many of us, but it's extremely important. Color correcting is a method of using complementary colors, which are those colors that are directly opposite each other on the color wheel, to cancel out the look of any type of skin discoloration. Color correcting is used to target an array of various skin issues such as dullness, redness, under eye circles, dark spots, as well as bruises. And most of the time, the darkness under our eyes has tones of blues and purples in it. So what works best to deal with dark circles, which are these colors, is to use a peach or salmon toned color corrector. How deep a tone we use depends on how deep our skin color is. Let me show you the color wheel to show you exactly how this works. This is a makeup artist color wheel, and as you can see, at the bottom there are blues and purples, and at the opposite side you run into those salmon and peach colors that I was referring to. That's why it's so important to use a color that's opposite on the color wheel to color correct, because it literally does cover over that color effectively. And right now I have to mention a product that many of you may have heard me talk about before, because it's both a sunscreen and a color corrector. It's called Color Science Total Eye 3-in-1 Renewal Therapy, and it has 2 different shades of peach, light and original, plus a tan and a dark shade. But there's certainly many other color correcting products on the market. Most makeup lines have concealers in various different peach tones. Let me show you an example. Here's a color corrector from Clinique. It's their Beyond Perfecting Concealer, and this is in a very deep apricot tone. This is another one from Eve Pearl. The concealer is in the middle of the bottom row of 3 different circles. That, as you can see, is more of a middle peach tone for medium tone skin. And this is the Color Science product that I was referencing earlier. I'm going to use the original shade to both use as a sunscreen and to color correct. And let me show you how this works. This is the applicator tip, and you can certainly press out just a tiny bit of this by pumping down to get the amount that you need. And you can apply it directly on the under eye area with the applicator. However, I like putting a little bit on the back of my hand, and this is probably way too much as a matter of fact. Then I'm going to take a brush, and this happens to be a concealer brush. I'm going to put a little bit of that color on my brush, and then I'm just going to dot it in the area where I have those blue and purple colors that create dark circles under my eyes. And most of us have it on the inner corner, and many of us also have it on the outer corner. And then I'm going to take my finger and just gently pat, and the heat of my fingertips helps the product really melt into my skin. And I'm just going to put it on one under eye so you can see the difference when we finish of how my under eyes look when I use a sunscreen and a concealer and when I don't. Urban Decay also makes a line of color correcting fluids, and MAC Cosmetics and NYX, or NYX, which is a drugstore brand, and others also make entire color correcting palettes. The 4th step is to pat a concealer, which is 1/2 to 1 shade lighter than your foundation, over the color corrector. And please note that you really most likely will want to use a concealer that exactly matches your skin if you're using concealer on other parts of your face to cover age spots or discoloration. When you apply the concealer under your eyes, it's important to pat rather than rub, since we really don't want to disturb the color corrector that we've just applied. You want to tap it on in a very sheer layer with your ring finger, so the concealer will melt into the skin. The sheerer the application, the better, because our concealer is less likely to crease if we apply a sheer layer. And it can be helpful to look at your application in a magnifying mirror as well as a regular mirror, because remember, most people are seeing us from a distance, not at the magnification level of a magnifying mirror. So I'm going to go ahead and apply a lighter colored concealer, 1/2 to 1 shade lighter than I normally wear on the rest of my face, to that under eye area. Now, I don't have exactly the right shade of concealer, but it's perfectly okay to combine some different colors. So as you can see on my hand, I have 2 different shades of concealer. The darker shade pretty much matches my skin tone, but the other color is quite a bit lighter than my skin tone. By mixing them together, I can come up with the shade I want. I'm going to take the concealer brush that I used to put on the Color Science product after wiping that off, put a little bit of the concealer on my brush, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to dot it over where I applied the color corrector. And then I'm going to take my ring finger and I'm going to gently press that in so it really melts into the skin. Now, nothing is totally, unfortunately, going to get rid of these under eye circles and troughs that I have, unless I were to use some plastic surgery techniques of filler. But I think you'll see that it certainly looks better than this side. The two concealers that I used to mix together, by the way, were my e.l.f. Camo Concealer, which is the newer variety that is more moisturizing. And I also used the Maybelline Age Rewind Concealer. I'll list all of these products in the description box. And here's step number 5. Since the area under our eyes is mobile and our skin moves, our concealer can crease, which creates fine lines. A concealer which is too thin or too dry or even too moisturizing can cause creasing. So we really have to experiment to find the concealer that's really right for us. Unfortunately, there's no one thing that will work to prevent creasing for all of us, since we each have different levels of moisture in our skin and different under-eye issues. But I do want to give you a variety of suggestions for things that we can do that can help prevent our concealer from creasing that many people have found to be useful. The first is to look up slightly when applying concealer, which slightly stretches the skin. The second thing is to try applying a tiny bit of a hydrating primer, such as Laura Mercier's Hydrating Primer or NYX's Hydra Touch Primer, before applying concealer. This can help lock in the concealer. The third thing you might want to consider is applying a tiny bit of face oil to the skin to moisturize the area before color correcting and applying concealer, as well as after applying concealer. The fourth thing you might want to try is applying a very small amount of powder over the concealer, but rather than brushing it over the concealer, gently press it in. And number 5, spray some setting spray onto a concealer brush, dip it into the concealer, and then dot the concealer onto strategic areas and press in with your fingers as we did earlier. I'm going to take a little bit of powder and just press it in slightly to the area where I previously applied the sunscreen and the concealer. I'm using a loose, translucent powder in between the time when I first applied the concealer and the sunscreen. And since I've been talking, has been a while, you really should do this immediately after applying it, because already I have a little bit of creasing going on. So I'm going to press out that creasing, and then I'm going to press over it the powder, and I'm going to look up, which slightly stretches the skin. And I'm just very gently pressing it into the skin. All right, there you have it. And there are some additional things to keep in mind for our under eye area. First of all, it's very important to be as gentle as possible on the eye area when cleansing our face or removing makeup. You can use micellar water to gently dissolve the eye makeup product first without rubbing, or you can use an oil-based cleanser, which also helps dissolve eye makeup more easily. What's helpful to do is put it on a round cotton pad and then set it on top of the eye area, and then keep it there for a minute or so it really absorbs into the skin, which makes the makeup easier to apply. Second, we want to avoid applying foundation to our under eye area before putting on concealer. The fewer layers we apply to the under eye area, the better, so the products don't look cakey. Fewer layers also can help prevent our concealer from creasing. Third, if we have a lot of fine lines or some oiliness under our eyes, sometimes using an eye primer under the eyes can also help. Be sure to let it completely set before applying anything else. And fourth, if you have oilier skin, do use a concealer that's not quite as moisturizing. Some examples of these concealers are Tarte Shape Tape, Maybelline's Instant Age Rewind, Revlon Photo Ready, CoverGirl Moisturizing Concealer, or Urban Decay's Naked Skin. And now, let's talk about some specific concealers that work really well for many of us who are over 50. And by the way, I'll include a list of all of these concealers in the description box below. I first want to mention 2 specific categories of concealers. Concealers that are brightening and concealers that are waterproof. A brightening concealer for our under eye area can reflect and also diffuse light, and it can have a really blurring effect as well. There are a number of these types of concealers on the market, but there are 4 I'd especially like to point out. The first one is NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. The second is Becca's Light Shifter Brightening Concealer. Third, IT Cosmetics Bye Bye Under Eye Illumination Concealer. And finally, L'Oreal Infallible Pro Glow Concealer. However, do be aware that luminous finishes can sometimes magnify bags and puffiness unless you set the concealer with a little powder. And the powder obviously minimizes some of the luminosity, so again, you just have to experiment to see what will work best for you. Another category of concealers that can prove helpful for those of us over 50 are waterproof concealers, since some of us do have issues with watering eyes or eyes that tear easily. Estee Lauder Double Wear Stay in Place Flawless Concealer comes in 22 shades and sells for $29. It's medium to full coverage and waterproof. Two other good waterproof concealers are L'Oreal Infallible Full Wear Waterproof Concealer, which comes in 25 shades and sells for $13.49, and a Lancome concealer. I cannot pronounce because it's a French name. I will put it on the screen so you can see it, but it's a long-lasting concealer which comes in 13 different shades. And this Lancome concealer sells for $31. And I want to share with you some other really good concealers that can work especially well for those of us who are over 50. First, I'll mention some higher-end brands, and then I'll cover some drugstore brands. First, for higher-end concealers, you might want to check out Too Faced Born This Way Concealer, which retails for $28 and provides full coverage, but is really lightweight and long-wearing. It also comes in 16 different shades. Tarte makes one called Aqua Sealer Rainforest of the Sea, which is also lightweight. It's water-based and really glides on beautifully. There are 11 shades with this concealer, and this one retails for $26. Another good one is Pat McGrath's Skin Fetish Concealer in 36 different shades at $32. It has very good coverage and is also lightweight. Another highly rated concealer is Dior's Forever Skin Correct in 28 shades, which sells for $36. It has light to medium coverage, but just be aware that the shades in this particular line do tend to run on the warmer side. Some other good ones include Charlotte Tilbury's Magic Away Concealer, which comes in 20 shades for $32, but the sponge tip applicator can be a bit challenging. However, you can always put some on the back of your hand and apply it with your ring finger. I mentioned Tarte Shape Tape Contour Concealer a little bit earlier. It is absolutely a cult favorite. If you have very dry skin, you may want to try something else. It does come in 14 different shades and retails for $24. Lancome makes two excellent concealers. One I mentioned earlier, which was waterproof, and the second one I will put up on the screen because I will definitely mispronounce it if I try to pronounce it. It comes in 27 shades for $31. MAC Pro Longwear Concealer comes in 16 shades and costs $25. It does have a pump top, so it is easy with this one to pump out too much, but it is really long wearing and it's good for both face and eyes. Another good one is Makeup Forever's Ultra HD Concealer, which comes in 26 shades and sells for $28. And it does come in a squeeze tube applicator, and I know that's not the favorite application method for some of you. I also love Laura Mercier's Flawless Finish Ultra Longwear Concealer, which retails for $29 and comes in 22 shades. So all of those are some really excellent higher-end concealers. And really what I recommend is, when it's possible to do so, based on health concerns, to go to makeup counters and get samples of these different concealers. That way you can try them out at home at your leisure, check them out under different kinds of lighting as well, and really find out which one is going to work best for you before actually purchasing. Unfortunately, we can't do this with drugstore concealers, but do let me mention a few brands that do receive rave reviews from a number of people. So some of the drugstore brands are Milani's Conceal and Perfect, which comes in 18 shades and is a wonderful bargain at $9. Maybelline's Instant Age Rewind Eraser, which retails for $9.99 and comes in 18 colors. And Revlon's Photo Ready Candid Antioxidant Concealer, which comes in 18 shades and costs $10. I also want to mention that sometimes it can be helpful to use different concealers for different things. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes you want to use one concealer on your face that exactly matches your skin, and then another concealer which is 1/2 to 1 shade lighter under your eye area. But you also may have other purposes for concealers. For instance, Before I put on my lipstick, use a concealer around the edge of my lip line. I want to basically blot out my lip line so I can work more effectively at creating a new lip line by slightly increasing that lip line with my lip liner pencil. To do that, rather than use my expensive concealer, I use my Maybelline Age Rewind concealer. It works wonderfully here. It's not nearly as expensive, so I don't feel bad using this every day for that particular application. And then what I mentioned is I combined my e.l.f. concealer with my more expensive Laura Mercier concealer to use in my under eye area. That way, I'm not using quite as much of my expensive concealer by combining it with a little bit lower cost concealer. That way, it will last a whole lot longer. Phew! We have covered a lot of ground. I hope you found these tips to be helpful, and if so, I would so appreciate it if you'd give this video a thumbs up. And if you have a friend or a family member who's also dealing with under eye concerns, I hope you'll also share this video with that person. Since one of the most helpful things we can all do is share information with each other, I do hope you'll share your recommendations for a great concealer in the comments section below. I'd love to know the ones that are your absolute go-to favorites. Thank you so very much for joining me today. I so appreciate the gift of your time, and I want to wish you a very happy and healthy and fabulous rest of your day. Take care.